Hello there, my fellow Cybertronians. This is Ginger Transformer podcast with your host Mega Ginge, with the second promised part of my what if kind of scenarios. The first one got some attention, so as promised, here's the second part basically. First off, a couple of the suggestions. There were the couple of comments on it. One was, what would happen if the Ark crashed into Sodor? For anyone that doesn't know, the Isle of Sodor is basically, you ever heard Thomas the Tank engines with faces, whether old or new? They're all in the Isle of Sodor, basically. What happened if the Ark crashed into Sodor? There would be no Thomas the Tank. The size of the Ark, it would have been like a nuke hitting Sodor. There would be no Sodor. That's the length and breadth of that what if. What if it hit? There would be no more Thomas the Tank. It would be gone. Another one was about what if the Autobots were evil and the Decepticons were good? The person knew what they were talking about though, and he went and they went on to say, "Oh, well, what if shattered glass maybe?" And I'm sitting going, "Fantastic! I like that idea." Well, let's face it. If you ever read Shattered Glass, you kind of know the war's basically the same, just players are in different positions. But I did like that people actually got involved and gave us a couple of suggestions. There was a comic as well, just saying a comment, sorry, saying there should be a series between the second series ending and the movie. To which I wholeheartedly agreed because obviously I had a podcast about that not long ago. There's also I don't know the name of it if I'm honest, but someone is trying to do a kind of in between season on YouTube. Right now, as of now, there's like 5 episodes. I think the fifth one's called Heart of Darkness. I've had a look, and it's good to see there's actually a lot of support out there for the possibility of having some series made in between season two and the movie to like fill in some gaps. And there's also been other podcasts about it as well. Some of them predate my own one. I didn't steal the idea, just to make this very clear. I just always thought it would be good to get some answers for things that weren't even a comic book series would be good enough for me at this point. I just always wanted to know what happened between, because that was it. So on to the what ifs. I say that I'd give us more examples, and I've got some more examples, including the ultimate what if, but that's right at the end. So first off, a couple of season ones that weren't done beforehand. What if the Ark, funnily enough, doesn't crash into the volcano? I think it's Mount St. Hilary in the comics. That's from More Than Meets the Eye, part one's very first episode. What if it doesn't crash there? I mean, what if it crashed into the ocean? Would all the events we see then unfold 4 million years before? Because let's face it, they crashed into water, even at speed. The Ark survived ramming a volcano at high speeds. I'm pretty sure it could survive water. Would we have seen, Optimus Prime fighting a dinosaur instead of occasionally Grimlock? You know, would Megatron have met Beast Wars Megatron? Would there have been, and he knew about it? Obviously, there is some crossover in the Beast Wars series, but would they have been awake, alive? They wouldn't have been shut down, and they wouldn't have been in stasis lock. So I think that's the official term for these is stasis lock. They wouldn't have been in it. I mean, imagine that. The Decepticons and Autobots on a prehistoric Earth. The Autobots don't really need to worry about it. At that point, I think it was like 5 billion humans. They wouldn't need to worry about that. Ape Prime probably would have tried to protect dinosaurs until he realised they're biting me. Okay, fuck this. He would have stomped some oil for us. Yeah, I think that would have been nice. Maybe a little crossover G1 side of crossover, not Beast Wars crossover, with some of the characters, because that's why they went back in time in the first place, to find the Ark. Or would that create another timeline where none of Beast Wars happened because all it happened back then? They were never shut down. They were never missing. SOS Dinobots. What if the Ark had never had those tremors, leading to the discovery of the dinosaur bones, which led to the creation of the Dinobots? Imagine that. No Dinobots. We would not have some cracking episodes. I mean, you've got SOS Dinobots, that one for a start. I mean, and how many? They weren't like focused on Dinobots, but there were other episodes as well. Atlantis Arise, I think it was with Subatlantica. I mean, there was a Dinobot episode, but without the Dinobots, The Autobots were getting whooped without the Dinobots. They were getting whooped in. There's so many episodes, but I can't remember the name. But basically, we wouldn't have had Dinobot Island, the two-parter. We wouldn't have had Desertion of the Dinobots, that two-parter, because there were no frigging Dinobots. Would the Ark have been destroyed in the last episode of season 1 because there were no Dinobots there for Teletran to activate to take on the Constructicons when they dug into the Ark? Believe it or not, the Dinobots, dumb shits that they are quintessential to the Autobots' survival through seasons 1 and 2. Call of the Primitives in season 3, no Dinobots, no Grimlock to get smooshed by Trypticon, only to dig his way out. He stopped Tornatron, not Tornatron's creator. He didn't stop him. Grimlock did. He went, hit reverse maybe, dumb shit, click. He literally saved the galaxy. No Grimlock, no galaxy saved. Tornatron's out there feeding on everything. So SOS Dinobots, I think that's actually probably bigger than the first example there because it spans throughout everything. You need the Dinobots. I mean, let's face it, the movie wouldn't have been half as fun without the Dinobots. It would have just been depressing because all your fan favourites were getting killed off left, right, and centre. Who was fighting Devastator at that point? Was Prime would just jumped down? Don't know, he probably could have done it. There's not a chance in hell he'd have been able to fight Megatron after taking out Devastator. At least that's my opinion. Moon Knight season 2. Like I said, I'm not doing lots of these in case for some reason he's want a part 3. The Immobilizer. What if all the Autobots got immobilized? Quick catch up on it. Basically, there is a invention created by Wheeljack for it's basically for immobilizing the Decepticons to basically they don't want to kill them, but capturing them is going to be a bitch, So he creates that. The Decepticons got a hold of it and tweak it so it's now permanent, Of course, they use it against the Autobots. Some Autobots don't get mobilized, they're able to turn the tables on them and destroy the device. Say they all got immobilized. There's no one to turn the table. Just to stop Megatron going back to Cybertron going, hey, Shockwave, use this. See Magnus and all the others? Just immobilize them. We don't need to waste energy. We don't need to destroy them. Just leave them there. Let them rust. Decepticon rule, for pretty much all the rest of that. The Autobot run, kind of similar to the last one. What if all the Autobots were stuck in their vehicular modes? Now, obviously, we see some aren't, and that includes dinos. You don't see them getting stuck in dino mode, which wouldn't have been that much of an impediment anyway. But that's the thing. If they all get stuck in vehicle mode, yeah, they could still drive. But as you see in the episode, that's useless. The Decepticons lock them into their vehicle modes. They can't fight back, really. I mean, we saw Ironhide getting scrapped. He was the first one in the week, crane thing, clink, 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 dumped. That was stopped by Prime, who fair enough was in his vehicle mode, but there was nothing else after that. It would have been right, pick him up, shoot his tires out, put him back in the crane and crush him. And it would have happened with all the Autobots. And once again, what's to stop Megatron just going, hey, yes, Shockwave, listen, we're going to conquer this planet, take this device, go after Magnus and all the others, and, they should be easy pickings. And they would. Once again, both of those scenarios are quite bad for the Autobots because they're either scrap metal or they're just left to rust, and they're no longer threats to the Decepticons, and in both timelines, Decepticon rule. Hail Megatron. A lot of these scenarios, what-if scenarios, funnily enough, do end up with Decepticon rule. But that's because, let's face it, the worst scenarios are the ones the Autobots stop. No Autobots usually leads to very bad shit happening for Earth and other associated planets. Megatron's master plan. Here's a good one. What if the Autobots couldn't stop the ship going into the sun? Say Chip Chase doesn't get to the Ark. He doesn't try to, help the Autobots. So Thrust never turns up. He doesn't destroy Teletran 1 thinking he's been a good little Decepticon and doesn't release not only the ship but Cosmos from his grasp. Say, something happened to him. Say, he rolled off a cliff. Chip Chase. You might as well if we never see him again after the movie. Or hell, after the start of season 2, really. And that's it. End of. No more Autobots. They're all deep fried. Earth is under permanent Decepticon enslavement. Don't know. In this scenario, there are still Autobots out there giving it the fight on Cybertron, but on Earth, there's no one. If I was Megatron, I'd have just kept the pretense up. I'd be like, oh yeah, listen, we are the heroes. It's good that you get rid of the Autobots, send them away, blah blah blah. Because obviously the humans don't know that the Autobots are sent to the sun, you know. And but listen, in case more enemy Autobots come, we're gonna need some energy, just to make sure you're safe, blah blah blah. Earth would have handed over its fucking resources freely. They would have had no need for all the deception. Seemed to enjoy it while it lasted. At least, Rumble did, and they're like partying with the girls, at a disco. But yeah, once again, grim scenario leads to pretty much all the Autobots dying. But once again, these are the worst case scenarios of the what ifs, you know? And usually leads to, at the very least, the Earthbound G1 Season 1 and 2 Autobots dying. This is going to be a bit out there, but once I read it, you'll understand why it's in here. A Decepticon Raider in King Arthur's Court. Now, this was said ages ago in my top Transformer episodes. This was not one of them. This is one of the ones I panned. But it is a time traveling one, so it directly affects what I'm talking about. And there's two scenarios here. First one is, what if Spike had stayed in the past with the princess? Now, I don't think that really would have affected Autobot Decepticon stuff, but would that have created some sort of predestination paradox or some other sort of paradox? Because let's face it, he's creating a whole new line of wikis from what was it, about 400 years before he was born? Maybe, like I said, maybe it was a grandfather paradox. Maybe he went back in time and he got with this lassie, and that's how his line starts, in another universe, obviously. But obviously, what if he stayed? Not a big deal, Autobot or Decepticon wise. However, I don't know, maybe with his future knowledge, maybe alerts at the very least the country he's in, because it's like 400 years ago. There's no internet, there's no phones. Maybe he alerts people he can alert, word of mouth getting out that these big friggin' robots will be coming here. The ones with the red badges are the good guys, and the ones with the purple badges are the bad guys. And they need to prepare for the next several hundred years, next few centuries, just for their arrival. So when they get there, the Decepticons aren't as big a threat. See, this is where it goes. It's a weird tangent. There's another one in this one, though. What if no Autobots had followed Starscream into the past? Now, Starscream didn't go into the past intentionally, and obviously wasn't alone. He had Ravage, Rumble, and Ramjet. I'm pretty sure he had Ravage. What if the Autobots had got there, but not in time? The time portal shuts down, and Warpath, Hoist, and Spike never follow him into the past. Starscream was defragging delighted when he found out he had all that time before everyone in the Ark woke up. What was to stop him just going, right, I'm gonna wake everyone up, bar myself and you and you and you, and bar Megatron, obviously, And there we go. Decepticon Empire in the medieval ages is like fantastic with Starscream as the ruler. And let's face it, that entire timeline changes. I don't even think Earth would be there anymore in the future. It would be drained of energy. There'd be no humans. You'd have Megatron waking up in an arc 400 years in the future going, where the hell is everyone? Why am I surrounded by dead Autobots? Where are my fucking troops? Only for Starscream to turn up by a crowd going, is that bitches? You get the point. That's a very couple of pungent what ifs from technically time travel paradoxy, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly crap standpoints, from one episode. This takes us into some season 3 episodes I got. Forever is a long time coming. For those that title's not jogging the memory, the Quints bring A3 into the present. A3's future, A3 being Alpha Trion, who leads the uprising against the Quintessons, with the coder remote he has, in hopes of stopping him from leading the uprising. So what if A3 had just got stuck in the future? What if the portal just blew up after he was through? Quintessons have they need to kill him. They've basically done it. They've changed the future. As soon as he comes through and the portal shut down, because while it's open, timelines are still in flux. Anything that can happen probably will happen. But once he's there, once it's shut down and there's no way back for him, once again, I think that creates a paradox, but I cannot remember what kind of paradox that is that it creates. But it creates a paradox. All of a sudden, the last 12 million years or something gets rewritten. Quintessons are still rulers of Cybertron. Maybe there was another uprising. A3 wouldn't have been a part of it. Maybe there was another uprising. I mean, let's say he had his own little gang of warriors, but as it was said in the episode itself, they're not really warriors, they're civilians, they're scientists, they can't fight. Would they have rose up without them? It doesn't, but from looking at the episode as is, it doesn't look like it. Even with Autobots in the past to help them, who'd get taken through when he got brought forward. That kind of gives you another what if right there. What if Blaster and Co get stuck in the past? I mean, they put up a good fight, but without Beta stopping them getting crushed by an Omega Sentinel, they were just something getting scraped off the Dark Guardian's shoes, you know? I mean, if that hadn't happened, but they were stuck in the past permanently, I don't think Autobots would have got their freedom. Well, all Cybertronians at that point would have got their freedom. They might have been able to give them a couple of rousing speeches. Blur would have been able to do some like recon, getting some how fast he is. Red Guy would have been able to talk TV to them and confuse the living shit out of them. But once again, I don't think that would have been enough. A3 was pivotal. So with him stuck in the past, would it have made a difference without A3? No, I don't personally think so. But once again, that leads to a darker future where the Quintessons are still in charge of them and the Transformers do not have their freedom. Don't get me wrong, several years of civil war and then war that leads to the destruction of other planets out with Cybertron would not happen. I mean, how many times, just in the few seasons we got alone, is the Cybertronian war stopped by someone, but then it's restarted by someone? It's like, Jesus. Five Faces of Darkness is a perfect example of that. The Quints succeed. They shut the Autobots and Decepticons down, all the Transformers, all over the galaxy down. Further, okay, it's Galvatron that pulls the switch because he's an idiot. But he does it. They do it. They shut him down. That's it. The war's over. No more innocents need die. Q Spike. Screw you, Quintessons. Boom. And he blows up the switch and everyone's reactivated and war continues. It's like, see, this is why we don't need fucking humans. For other species, I think maybe it would have been possibly better if the Quintessons were still in charge and the Transformers were still slaves. But then again, you know, it's this is why it's what if. It's tricky shit. Sometimes it's not very important, like, you know, Spike staying in the past and banging a princess. Other times it's like, there you go, that's past 12 million years, rewritten. Web World. And once again, I'll kind of left field on Web World. Galvatron goes to get his insanity cured. Goes. Cyclonus tricks him and he gets taken away to have his insanity cured. It doesn't happen and he destroys the planet and he goes off to hunt more Autobots. But what if they had been able to cure Galvatron's madness? Now, there were two ways of doing this. A therapeutic route, which we'll have a look at, and the other route, if you know, you know. Therapeutic route. What if this had been it? What if Galvatron had responded well? He'd actually pieced together the fragments of his mind that were shattered when he went from being Megatron to Galvatron. Well, best case scenario there, the Decepticons now have a sane leader, which is not a good thing for the Autobots. And more than likely, Galvatron has Cyclonus shot for treason for tricking him in the first place. Even though it's helped him, you know, we'd have to still go, yeah, well, you know, he kind of rebelled. I don't want to do it now, I'm saying, but at the same time, disciplinary measures are needed to keep everyone else in line. Bang, dead. Scourge ascends, you know, and then things will just. I think it would just be slightly tougher for the Autobots with a sane Galvatron. He's not going to stop being evil. He's just, you know, not nuts. Second way, the if you know, you know way, where they're going to eat the meta processor, like feed that to the little things on the planet, the little creepy crawlies. The meta processor contains his mind, no mind. It would just be, as Cyclone said, it would just be a machine. So the Decepticons wouldn't have a leader. Now, at this point, Galvatron's Lieutenant Cyclonus probably would step up. But I don't see him doing a great job. He's very loyal to his boss, but he doesn't seem to have any sort of imagination. Scourge does, kinda, but Cyclonus not so much. But because Cyclonus outranks Scourge, he would be in charge. You know, unless you want to do some sort of battle royale inside of Astro Train again. But yeah, you'd probably end up leader. And I'm not gonna lie, it would probably be slightly easier for the Autobots in this one direction. Because what if there's no Galvatron basically because he's been cured? The Autobots just go in with everything they've got. They don't have they don't have Galvatron, a superpowered lunatic with a few particle cannon. He's got a particle cannon blowing everything up all over the place. You know, he's the wild card. He kept the Autobots edgy because he's pretty much a nutter. Without that, the way the Decepticons were, they're no longer to be feared, more pitied, if I'm completely honest. I mean, you see it through most of the first few episodes of season 3. They're on Char. Bits of them are falling off them, bits of them are in decay. They're energon deprived. They're fighting each other for whatever scraps they can get. They probably went back to that with no Galvatron. But hey, that's a what if for another day, you know? The bird inherits the bear. Now, a lot of you are going to think I'm going to go, what if Rodimus never lost the Matrix? No, that's boring. What if Scourge had killed both Galvatron and Cyclonus when he was taking over the Decepticons, solidifying him as a Decepticon leader? What if this Scourge was not goaded? What if he wasn't like sloppy with his aim, you know? And I'm not just meaning with Cyclonus and Galvatron. What if he was on Earth? You see how he gets distracted by humans, blah, blah, blah. No, what if he's just this mega powered psychopath who just goes around destroying everything? And it's singularly focused. I don't think Hot Rod would have been able to get the Matrix back off him. I think the Decepticons would have been that afraid of him that they would have like leveled the planet. The Autobots would have get trounced. It would have just been like giant disfigured guy as a leader for the Decepticons. Don't get wrong, it might not have went anywhere. Maybe they would have got beat anyway. And it's just that Scourge is the leader now. Matrix powered. Fair dues. What would that what would that do for the Autobots? No Matrix leadership, which means no Hot Rod. Sorry, Rodimus Prime. And we've just got Hot Rod. Who's in charge? Ultra Magnus? Yeah, because he loved that the first time. He was very happy to kind of shirk the responsibility. Like I said, some of these are big what ifs. Some of them are not that big. It's what you make of it. And it's like, if you even just think of these, don't even think of the examples that I gave for these episodes. Just, Motor needs CI Part 1 if it doesn't hit the volcano. What if it doesn't hit Earth at all? Maybe think along those lines, Or maybe if it doesn't even make it to Earth, all those two asteroids are going to collide. They're pretty fucking close. Bang! No more arc. Just use your imaginations on that one. Because let's face it, we've got 3 seasons. Like I said beforehand, we got 3 seasons of Marvel's What If. And only one season was good. But it would be good to have some episodes like this if they're not going to give us like between season 2 and the movie episodes, which I think they should do. Give us a few what if ones and just kind of go off from there. Once again, comics would be fine. I would be good with comics on this. Oh yeah, and there's one what if, nothing to do with an episode. It's the big one I told you at the start. What if GoBots had got proper traction and the Transformers were never discovered? They never existed. The TV show was null and void. Who here would have a lot more spare cash? Or would we just all be collecting GoBots till the day we die? That's a what if for all of us, Me personally, I think I would have a lot of spare cash. Because I've watched the GoBots compared to the Transformers, and it didn't, even though it's like the similar themes, transforming robots, it didn't appeal to me. It was boring. That just my opinion. If you like GoBots, more power to you. But I'm just saying, what if they were the big franchise and not the Transformers didn't exist, or they were like what the GoBots are now compared to Transformers, basically the Diddy franchise. Would we still all be collecting? Would this podcast be the Ginger GoBot podcast? That'd be a little fucked up. There you go. That's the big what if at the end. That's big reveal. There you go. I did mention that someone asked a what if about shattered glass earlier in the podcast right at the start. So I will be doing 2 separate podcasts on the Generation 1 shattered glass stuff. I don't think there is anything else apart from Generation 1, if I'm completely honest. You get some like Armada and Energon characters, but it's primarily Generation 1-esque. So I'll be doing a few podcasts on that, just to because if you haven't heard of Shattered Glass, it's really something good. It's something that I would encourage people to get into, and I will be encouraging people on my next podcast, or 2, or 3. We'll see how much material I can find. But yeah, until that's that. Until next time, my fellow Cybertronians, transform, roll out, stay safe, and all that other stuff.